Welcome to Random Dialogues 29, where we're joined by 6 speakers-ish who are going to speak for up to 6 minutes each. We're live streaming on Thursday, the 30th of January, between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. on YouTube and over on LinkedIn. So currently I'm joined by 3 of our speakers, waiting for the other to arrive. So I'm going to just go around and ask them to introduce the title of their talk. Fitzroy.
Good evening. Thanks for the introduction, Jane. I'm Fitzroy Williams, and I'm going to be talking about Soundtrack of Our Lives.
Fabulous, thank you. And Fran.
Hi, I'm Fran Webster, and I'm going to be talking about multilingualism. Great to be here with everyone.
Thank you. Ed.
Hello, my name's Ed Moore, and I'm going to be talking about top tips to becoming a greener school.
Thank you very much. Now, some of our speakers who are joining us have been, quite prolific speakers, and others have never done this type of thing before. So some of our 6 minutes will be as a Q&A format, and then we'll let them sort of get into the flow. But each talk is up to 6 minutes. So, Fitzroy, are you okay to take? Ian's just arrived. I'm just gonna. I'll add him later. He's just dialing in. Fitzroy, do you want to go solo layout or as this format?
As it comes.
I'll put you into solo.
Okay.
Good luck. Enjoy.
Thank you.
And will the rest of us, if we all go on mute?
Okay, good evening. My topic for this evening on Random Dialogues is Soundtrack of Our Lives. And this subject is about how your soundtrack may have been paths and how I helped create some of these paths. Excuse me. So, how do you listen to your music? What type of music do you enjoy listening to? Pop, soul, jazz, reggae, Irish, Bollywood, French, German, Korean, Japanese. There's so many choices. We're all different and have different ways of how we've been introduced to music, either by our friends, our parents, family, older or younger siblings, or from our social scene. But no matter how we're introduced to music, over the years, our music menu will change and can change erratically. I personally was introduced to Motown and soul by my older sister. Joe Tex, Bump No More was a house favorite. She also introduced me to jazz album by an English saxophonist, Kathy Stobbard, that caught my vibe. Brooke Benton, Sam Cooke, Jim Reeves, and Andy Williams was a stable diet in our house and constantly played by my mum when I was a child, which has stayed with me even up to now. I was introduced to classical music by being in my school concert band, where I played the clarinet and was playing music by composers such as Beethoven, Handel, Bach, and such like. I also got into jazz by playing film scores and tracks that caught my attention. With that, I got into Acapulco after hearing Stranger on the Shore. Then after, I got into Benny Goodman as a trad jazz clarinetist. I share this information with you to demonstrate that at a young age, I was submitted to a variety of musical styles that helped formulate a path of such that grew as I became older. I'm known to many in my circles as Mr. Eclectic. I love listening to music and I enjoy playing it, and in the catalyst of being a DJ. And this is where I believe I helped create some of these paths. So due to playing to a wide audience of different nationalities and backgrounds, I'm regarded as an open format DJ, although I can also specialize. An open format DJ is a DJ who plays a wide variety of music genres during their sets, rather than sticking to a single genre or style. This versatility allows me to adapt my performance to the audience, event type or venue, creating a dynamic and personalized experience. You may be asking, what is an open format DJ? Genre diversity. This is where I mix genres such as R&B, house, pop, reggae, rock, funk, and more, often within the same set. And I try to have a smooth transition between styles to keep the crowd engaged. Adaptability. This is where I read the room to determine what music works best for the audience at any given moment. And this is ideal for events where the audience has mixed tastes like weddings, corporate events, or club nights. And creative mixing. As an open format DJ, I try to creatively blend genres or using mashup, remixes, and transitions to surprise and entertain the audience. And a very important aspect is to have a wide audience appeal. And this means to have a broad repertoire of music, making my style suitable for a diverse crowd and ensuring there's something for everyone. So where would you find an open format DJ such as myself? Nightclubs and bars, private events, festivals, and also on radio shows. And why are they so popular? They bring flexibility, creativity, and crowd-pleasing skills to any settings. And these are particularly valued for their ability to cater a wide range of musical taste, ensuring a lively and engaging atmosphere. So now you have an idea of the type of DJ I am. How do I create a path? Well, two things happen here. Yes, these events, people have fun and be social with their family and friends. But what also happens is that listening to a certain track that is played at an event can take you back to a time and place, remind you who you were with, and more importantly, evoke memories and take you back to a sad or happy time. As a DJ, I do a number of live events, but I also do host an internet radio show called The Twilight Zone Show. And this is on Starpoint Radio, which takes you back and forth on a musical journey, playing predominantly soul, funk, soulful house, jazz, and a bit of reggae just for good measure, consistent of music from the past, the present, and songs of the future. And that means tracks soon to be released. And with that, the intention is to evoke memories and hopefully instigate some new ones. There's tracks I even listen to now that takes me back to lockdown, where we literally had nothing else to do but listen to music or watch a bit of TV. And also tracks I hear now that reminds me of nightclubs I used to frequent in my younger days. So I ask you, if you were to map your musical journey since school, what would it sound like? That, my friend, would create the soundtrack of your life. I hope you've enjoyed my random dialogue and found it food for thought, and hopefully we'll look at your musical journey to resurrect some of those tunes from your archives, i.e. your CDs, your cassettes, or vinyl. Thank you, Jane, for the invitation to your podcast. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fitzroy. And I certainly enjoyed your DJ set where we met at Business Buzz a few months ago at the ball.
Thank you.
And we had a wonderful dance, all of us. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. So we'll have another two speakers, and then we have a bit of time for Q&A. So if you're tuning in and watching us, it's like 3 Q&A, then 3. So I'm going to ask Fran if she's brave enough to go next. You need to unmute.
There we go.
There you
Didn't
go.
want to disturb you, Fitzroy.
And do you fancied a Q&A session for 6 minutes?
Yeah,
Yes.
Let's get
And
started.
then I'm going to make sure I put my stopwatch on so that I stick to the time. It's just.
Well, I'm a teacher, so I'm pretty good at looking and keeping track.
Okay. There's three teachers here today. I'm going to add Tricia to the stage. Hi, Tricia. She's just joined us. Hi, Tricia.
Hi, Trish.
Okay, Fran. So you want to talk about your passion tonight is bilingualism.
Yep.
Bilingualism. Multilingualism.
I think, language is part of all our lives, and it plays a particular role in my life because English isn't actually my first language. I was born and grew up in Germany, so I am fluent in German, and I teach German, and I love it. And of course, now I'm also fluent in English. So I learned English at school, and then came over here on what was supposed to be a gap year, 20 odd years later. I got a bit of a shock initially because I thought my English is pretty good. It wasn't really, because unbeknownst to me, I'd been learning and practicing the American pronunciation and American vernacular, as it were, because that's of course predominant in music and in films, and so the English that you come across internationally is often American English. So I had a few Americanisms in me that I wasn't aware of, and people had a bit of a giggle sometimes when I was speaking initially, coming to England. I've got rid of that now, hopefully. So I think I think in at least 2 languages on any given day. So depending on what I do, depending on who I'm with, I will use one or the other of my main languages, and thinking in those languages as well, dreaming in those languages at times. So it's all very interesting. It sort of pervades my life quite a lot. And my first degree is also in languages and linguistics, so definitely have a passion for it, and the communication that comes with it.
And do you have a tip for, do you think it's an innate thing to be able to learn all these different languages, or?
I think some people find it harder than others. So some people have to really work at it. I don't think it's unattainable for anyone. Okay, so that's a double negative. What I mean is that anybody can learn a language if they want to. Okay, it might just take different learning strategies, different approaches, and possibly a little more work for some people as well. But I think learning a language is extremely rewarding, and it opens up so many horizons. As it says on my little crib sheet, language is more than just the words that we put together, because it gives you an insight into the culture of that country, or the countries that use that language. So when I'm teaching German to adults, we often talk about how things are expressed. So not just the correct word to say something, but why we say it that way, and how is that different from English, and what does that reveal about the mindset of people using that language in both instances. So what does it reveal about the German mindset if we have a preference for expressing something a certain way, as opposed to the English mindset or the British mindset, where it might be expressed differently. So it opens doors, literally, because of course you have access to more places when you speak more languages around the world, but it also opens doors in the mind, and again in lots of different ways. So you've got that understanding of the underlying culture and idiomatic language use, for example, or the way people joke and what they find funny. It's all these little elements that go into a language, and then you also develop something called meta-linguistic awareness, which means the more languages you learn, the more you understand language as a concept. So you're probably familiar with the fact that all languages have some sort of grammar and rules attendant to it. English has very few, lots of exceptions, fewer rules. German has lots of rules, fewer exceptions. But it basically means that I've just lost my train of thought. Where was I?
Which thought were you thinking in?
Which language was I thinking in? English, because I'm currently speaking English. But I've lost my train of thought. Oh, meta-linguistic awareness. That's right. So you have an awareness of how language works, and I certainly found that learning different languages. Russian was the first language I learned when I was very young in Eastern Germany. Then I learned Latin, and I learned English. No, English first, then Latin. And several others as the years progressed, and I found that with every new language I learned, I learned something else, or I had a new perspective on my own language as well, and how I use language in lots of different ways. So I find it rather fascinating.
Thank you very much for your random dialogue about multilingualism. And there'll be time in the Q&A if anyone else has any more questions and any more thoughts. Depending on, again, what they're thinking. All right, thank you very much, Fran. I'm going to just take the banner away so that I remember to do that. There we go. Welcome, Tricia. Are you ready for your 6-minute random dialogue-ish?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm going to put you into solo layout. I know you weren't here for the start, and then I'll take you if you're. I'll let you come out of the solo layout once you get to the 6 minutes. Then you'll know if you're not keeping the track. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, over to you, and we'll all mute and enjoy. And thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'm beaming in from Ireland, and so I work as a psychotherapist and an artist, and I've specialized in working in end of life for about 17 years. So my own life fell apart in my early 30s, and I found myself in therapy for the first time. And my psychotherapist, her name is Nora. She was an amazing woman. And Nora really instilled in me the importance of listening to my inner voice. And over the time I was working with her, that's a space of about a year, a little bit more than that, I noticed that there was like a little whisper inside me saying, that you need to work with the dying. And I initially kind of switched it off. I thought it was madness because I had no experience of dying people apart from my very elderly grandparents. But that niggle stayed. It kept staying with me. And so I was doing a lot of meditation at the time, and I went and I did a course, and the course was to do with meditation and end of life. And as soon as I did that course, I felt, I want to get some training. I want to train in something. So I went off and I trained in psychotherapy specifically to work with people at end of life. And here in Ireland, there really aren't any openings, which I kind of didn't realize at the time when I was doing my training. But I did start as a volunteer artist in a palliative daycare centre. And I'm still there 17 years later, but I work as a psychotherapist and I still do artwork with some of the patients. And it's an area I'm extremely passionate about. So I feel that we're not enough about dying and death, and research is showing that. So I did my master's in the last couple of years, specifically to do a bit of research in relation to psychotherapy at end of life. And in the digging through the research, I realized that talk of dying is been pushed to the side, and it has been for probably about the last 20 to 30 years. I don't know what changed specifically that happened. I think possibly the medicalization of death, that death became more and more happening behind closed doors in a medical setting. But it has also fascinated me that research is saying, while palliative care is a very, very strong and good movement, and essentially they are care of the whole person, the totality of the person, we're missing out on helping a person come to terms with their dying. And dying as a whole is actually been pushed away, and the focus has been on quality of life and quality of living and hope. And it's an area I feel very strongly about because I've seen what happens with palliative patients when they're not encouraged or allowed speak about the fact that they are dying. And I'm really privileged with my work. I work with people, a great team of people in a small palliative daycare unit in Tralee in County Kerry in Ireland. And it's relatively new. It's so the centre opened 18 years ago this year. But so I work as is, I suppose, someone who I say it's like a dumping ground for people to come in and chat. And there's a couple of different things I think are really, really important. So one is when a person's diagnosed with a palliative illness, it's chances are they've already had cancer and it might have been cured and they're back, or they've gone through the treatment and it hasn't worked and they might be down the line. So by the time I see them, they've already lost a lot. They might have lost what they look like, lost their job, lost their job, as in they can't work, like physically they're not able to, lost their standing in the family, lost their income, lost their dreams, lost everything that was important to them on so many different levels. And when a person is first diagnosed with an illness, you've got family, friends, everyone flocks around, and there's that great support. But then as time goes on, people have to go back to their day-to-day lives, and palliatively ill people can feel incredibly isolated because the big turnout of friends and family to support them, that's petered away a little bit. And they're left with this, what one person called, it's like walking around with a grenade with a pin out, because they know that they're dying. And so, yeah, we could all say, oh, well, don't we all know we're mortal, but it's very, very different when it's actually, you're holding it every single day and every single night, particularly nighttime. So people really struggle at nighttime when they wake up and they feel their heart beating a little bit fast, and they think, is that it? Am I dying now? So they're living with their dying all the time, and it's incredibly, incredibly hard for them. And when the emphasis is all on living and quality of life and thinking positive, there's no space for them to actually go into what's really, really happening for them. So in this past year, I worked with a group of 7 patients, and they're all palliatively ill. 4 of them have since died, and they wanted to change that. So I created an installation with their guidance. And so my colleagues and my friends helped me put it together, and we put it up in a public, beautiful theatre space. And it is an amazingly simple but beautiful installation. And they were talking. So they're recorded, and there's photos of them in the full of their health, talking about what's happened for them and what it's like. And I haven't ever come across anything like it. Palliatively ill people talking honestly about how hard it is to be palliatively ill. And I'm really passionate about getting it out there more, because it started a whole dialogue in the place where it was, and a huge volume of medical staff who work with the dying a lot came out from it and said, I didn't expect that. I never saw it from that perspective before. So that's my whole thing, is that we need to start talking about our mortality. If we don't, we can make very dubious choices in relation to treatment plans. People can go for treatment and treatment and treatment, and it's sometimes really not in their best interests. Do I need to stop talking? Because I could talk all night on this.
Well, I think I feel like it is 6 minutes, but when we have the Q&A, there'll be time to talk some more. But I know that you got your message there. I think you got the installation, and I know that was the main thing that you wanted to talk about. So thank you very much, Tricia, for joining us.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you.
So now it's time for some a Q&A before we move on to our next 3 speakers. And with the Q&A, it might be that someone's watching and has some questions, or they're watching on record. So we can always engage with you afterwards, because there's a chat function on YouTube, and I've got this streaming onto LinkedIn as well. So I don't know if anyone here would like to ask any questions. I've got an awful thing. I've got to quickly go and get my charger. Planning and preparation. So can I just zoom off, and can I leave it to you to chat amongst yourselves for a moment, if possible? Ian, can you help?
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I'll pretend to be Jane. Any questions? I certainly have an observation for Fran. I work for a French bank, and one of the groups that I worked with, I had to go over to Paris to actually sort out something. And there's a team from London. There's a big trading floor in London. Their main trading floor for Europe is in London, or was. And I went over to Paris to actually sort something out. And other people in the team had not got anywhere. And I turned up there. And the lady that I went with, I could tell, a very tense meeting. And they said, can we do it in French? I said, I don't care what you do it in, as long as you actually, as long as we come to an agreement. And the lady that I brought over with me, who is the sort of like business analyst, was actually French. She said, no, the official language of the bank is English, for the investment bank, for the main sort of corporate side. And I can't do business in French. I can only do it in English. So we actually did the meeting in English, although quite frankly I couldn't care less. But it's interesting. You get your modes, and if you move into a different mode, you sometimes can't take the language with you. You have to.
I muted. I remembered. It's very funny. My phone number, for example. My mobile number, I can rattle that off in English, no problem. If I try to give my phone number in German, I have to think and translate, to visualize the number and translate. And then the same with the German phone number or email address or whatever. If you're used to something in a certain language, and especially when there is this jargon and vernacular involved, like a specific job. In banking there is a lot of different vocabulary that you have to use, which will be very difficult. I mean, there are many words that I don't know in German because I use them in English, and I only use them in English. So when I have to do certain things in Germany, I need a lot of help from people who are actually in Germany. Quite interesting.
Can I just, again, regarding the multi-languages, I did again, back to music. I was having a conversation with someone about beats, and people listen to music or they feel music. And I said, in general, you don't need to understand the words to appreciate music. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, because I could be playing you something in French, German, Spanish, and if you like the beat, you're going to enjoy the music. And they said, I don't understand that. If I don't know the words, I won't enjoy it. Guys, but generally, you don't know the words till you hear it repetitive. Yeah.
It's a different layer, isn't it? I mean,
it is. And I actually did a mix.
I know. It's,
called Around the World of R&B. And it's for polyglots. Basically, I had German, French, Spanish. There was no English words in this in our mix of various music to prove a point of, if you're enjoying the musically beat, you're going to enjoy the track. And he was quite surprised, and he actually found a couple of French, in fact, artists that he enjoyed, and is now looking more of their work. He can't speak French.
It adds a different layer, doesn't it? So
yes.
You can enjoy the music for music's sake, and that's certainly the case for me. I loved the music when I was young. Most of it happened to be English, of course. And then I started learning English, and I started figuring out, oh, that's actually what, I see. And that's what they're saying. And, oh, that's interesting. I have had it the other way around, where I thought, oh, this song is really nice. And then I figured out what it says. I thought, maybe not.
Yeah.
Also, I learned a weird thing the other day, is that languages, we all have the actual density of meaning in words is different in languages.
Yeah.
But as humans, we all roughly, doesn't matter what language we use or speak, the density. Oh, I like the black cat.
I know,
Tricia.
The density of information that we give as humans and receive is roughly the same, regardless of language. So that means for some languages that aren't as dense in meaning in the words, they're spoken faster. So the net result is the same. It's just it depends how fast people have to speak to actually get the same amount of information because of the meaning of the way the words are done.
Great point, Ian.
I'm going to move us on now to Ed, and then we'll have another, and then there'll be Ed, and Debra's joined us as well because she's just jumped in, lastminute.com. Debra spoke at Random Dialogue before, and she knew that she messaged, I can come and speak tonight, so that there was 6 of us needed, and I'm hopefully just hosting now. So thank you for joining us, Debra. And Ed is going to speak now. So Ed Moore is number 4. He's dialing in from Bali. I think it's about 4 o'clock in the morning there, Ed, is it?
Yeah, it's about 4:30.
So I'm conscious you also need to probably get back to bed. I'm not sure. So do you want to, you were going to do a Q&A format. Do you feel like you would like to do Q&A or take solo stage?
Yeah, I'm happy to do Q&A. That's cool.
Okay, so I'll just put the 6 minutes on so I don't go over with you. All right, so what's the topic of your talk today? I'm just going to, I'll just get the other banner up. So let me just, here we go.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about the top tips to becoming a greener school. Could be around the world, or it could be in England, where we all know that the DfE brought out a sustainability strategy back in April 2022 to help schools to become more environmentally friendly and try and hit net zero targets. The strategy is being revised as we speak, with hopefully a launch to being implemented back later on this year. But we can all do our bit. We can all do our bit for the environment, with climate change being more at the forefront of our minds, with massive downpours. We've seen deforestation with those forest fires as well. It's getting more and more at the forefront of our minds, and schools particularly, we need to take action. Young people need to take action to help protect our planet. And I have some top tips of where people can start. I really recommend that people, that schools particularly, they sign up to the Foundation of Environmental Education, Eco Schools, where that could help them follow some simple steps through to take some really simple action. Put together an environmental crew, a group of children, do an environmental review of your grounds and your school, of what you're doing. Celebrate all the good stuff, because I'm sure you're doing lots of really good things, but then also use the environmental review to help put together an action plan that you can then start implementing within your school. A good place to start is always auditing the waste within your school, looking at the resources that you're using, and trying to find alternatives. So obviously making sure that every child has a reusable water bottle, looking at your stationery, swapping over your glue sticks for refillable glue sticks. Learn Play Nexus do an awesome glue stick where they're the first in the world to have a refillable glue stick. You'll reduce the plastic waste that you use, but you also save money, and it's a good quality glue stick as well, which is 99% eco-friendly, which is pretty awesome. You can also get whiteboard pencils as well, so then you're reducing on the plastic pens. That really helps. You can look at your transport and seeing how you're getting to school. So why not try and cycle to school every day, or have a competition in your school of trying to get people to get on their bikes. You could even put together a park and stride, which is a bit of a personal favorite. So map round your school of where people can park and carry their bikes and their scooters, and then they can scooter in or cycle in to school, and then you're keeping that clean air around your school, which is brilliant. Why not make a garden, grow your own fruit and veg, sell it down the local market for some money, or you can then use it to cook with, which is brilliant. Children learning cookery skills too, or even put together a recipe book using the food with dishes from around the world. That's pretty cool too. Or put together a biodiversity garden to encourage the bees and the butterflies in, having bee homes and mini beast homes too, or take part in the big bird watch. There's lots and lots of things that you could all be doing, and I think it's really important that you involve the community. Community is really, really important. They can help with expertise, support your work, maybe even give you some funding too, which can help carry your projects forwards. And another one is reducing your single-use plastic. There's some really good organisations like Kids Against Plastic, Amy and Elamique, or Serves Against Sewage, where you can follow their steps to reducing the plastic within your school, to raise awareness of the many things that single-use plastic has quite a poor impact on what you're doing.
Thank you, Ed. That was still 6 minutes. Thank you very much. Well done. You didn't need to do a Q&A. You just passionately spoke about it. I was an eco lead last year, so when we have the Q&A after the next two speakers, hopefully we can have a little bit more of a chat about what it's like to be an eco lead at a school as well, you know, from a fresh newbie point of view, from taking on that role. Thank you. I'm gonna just Ian, are you okay to do 6 minutes?
Yes, I am.
I knew you wanted to do a bit longer, but if we have it to 6
No,
minutes,
I'm fine. I'm fine.
You're all right with that? Okay, fabulous. Well, this is what I had as the title of your random dialogue. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Fab. Do you want to go into solo layout for this?
No, I'm okay as we are. In fact,
Okay.
I prefer it as we are.
Okay.
Right. Yes, it's an interesting one. How do you have a deep conversation with a stranger? And it's something that I bumped into that I thought was quite interesting. And the key to it is to actually get onto the deep stuff that sort of connects us as human beings. And the smart thing to do is to actually ask one question. And that is, when was, you know, if you're actually on a bus stop or you're a long train journey or something, and it's and you're actually just chatting to somebody, rather than sort of, and there's a bit of time, rather than just the usual stuff, actually just ask this one question, and that is, when was the last time you cried in front of a stranger? And the key thing is to actually you share your story, and then you actually, and then somebody, the other person, if they feel comfortable, can actually share theirs back, and that creates quite a deep conversation. So if anybody would be willing to briefly share their story, that we'll see what the reaction is and see how we actually feel about that. So I'll go first. I'll explain mine. Going back to sort of the start of lockdown, unfortunately, at the beginning of the lockdown, my father passed away. He had Alzheimer's, so it was his time. But my wife actually found out at the same time that she had the early signs of start of ovarian cancer. So hysterectomy. Afterwards, she had all the injections to stop any blood clots. That after about 8 weeks of that, suddenly she got felt a bit strange. And in the morning, my son found her sort of blue lips, grey skin, looking not very well. Luckily, our doctor just randomly called and said, right, we need to be sent off to an assessment centre. So rushed off. Turned out she had massive blood clots in her lungs and her heart. And if she hadn't come in when she did, she may not have made it. So she's on warfarin for life now. But she scratched her legs soon after, and a big lump appeared on her leg. And that turned out to be a very rare melanoma that had come back after 15 years. So lots of scans, just to see if it spread anywhere. Found out she had a massive brain tumour. So that was whipped out. Then the leg was operated on. And then after that, which is very painful, very difficult for her, then she had some cancer targeted treatment that actually caused a, she was doing very well for about 3 months, and suddenly her body reacted to it. So we rushed into hospital in the middle of the night, tried 3 times to get that going, and it just literally froze her body each time. So they decided to stop the treatment, and when she started to be able to walk, we actually went away on holiday to Cornwall. And during that time, she was able to actually get off a Zimmer and walk a little bit and do things, and she was getting much better. And so we decided to actually stay on a bit longer. So it was horrible weather, but then suddenly, at the end of our 2 weeks there, it was nice weather. We decided to stay on for a few more days. And at that point, randomly, I don't know where, I got this pain in the back of my head, and I could hardly move. I was actually having a shower at the time, so I was covered in soap, and then suddenly, bang. So able to get hold of my wife, and we called the 999, whatever, 111 or whatever it is, and they sent an ambulance and took me in, and they did all sorts of scans and whatever to see if I was actually going to be okay, if there's any bleeding, whatever. But the reason why when I was crying was that it was in the morning, so it was the middle of the night, and in the morning They're just saying, we're just going to do all these scans, whatever. And the young doctor just said, how are you feeling? And at that point, just all of the pressure that had built up just wailed out of me. And I remember this very young lady, Dr. Liz, just sort of held my hand, and it just all just came out. And I felt that I think that was the last time I actually sort of really just sort of cried in front of a stranger. And yeah, that's my little story. If anybody wants to actually share a brief moment, if they have a similar sort of story, it'd be good to sort of reciprocate and see how that builds a connection.
I actually had something similar. It was a medical thing as well, strangely. So maybe it's to do with the vulnerability of that, that kind of provoked it. I was in hospital the end of October, and I had surgery earlier in the year, and everything had gone really well. So I was so disappointed to be back, and with another complication to do the surgery. And so I spent a day that someone actually came over, and they were saying, is everything okay? And it was exactly the same thing. And I just started crying, and I think I cried almost all day long. But I knew I needed to, because of the level of disappointment. But it was the kindness shown, I think, in the space of the vulnerability of it, the real vulnerability of illness when we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was the first release. And it was that person just being there to say, it's okay.
I think I would agree with that. It's very it's not a common thing, is it, as an adult to go out in public and burst into tears, right? Even if you feel like you want to cry, need to cry, or probably should cry to give yourself that release. We don't tend to do that in public. We sort of, well, I certainly have a tendency to hide myself away, in a safe space, or with close family and people that I trust before I break down. But sometimes that's not quite possible, is it? And it's when that sort of offer of support almost gives you permission to not be perfect, or to not, to take that mask off and go, well, actually, you know what? No, everything's not all right. And yeah. And that's when it then, and that comes so suddenly that it takes you by surprise and breaks all those barriers and self-constraint. Yeah.
Because I know that we're out of time, but just to wrap up, I think asking that question and sharing those things, it actually brings us all closer together. We actually get out of the superficial and into the deep immediately, and it does find it's quite a powerful thing.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Debra, are you okay to jump in for 6 minutes? And you're going to talk about dogs. You're on mute. Come on, you're a professional podcaster. She's still on mute. Oh, hang on. There you go.
Uh-huh.
That was my fault.
I was going, I can't find unmute. I can see I'm on. Yes, I'm good to talk.
All right, I'm going to put you into solo because I think you've been here before.
Yes.
You good?
That's
All right.
fine. Yeah.
I'll put you into solo. Good luck, and I'll put you on for 6 minutes. There you go. Over to you.
Okay. So I was thinking about what to talk about, and as chance would have it, I like having my TV on. I always have it on in the background, and whatever was on was annoying me. So I changed my channel and I landed on the doghouse. And it just made me think as I was watching a little bit of it. And in case you don't know, the doghouse is all about this dog charity in North London, I think, and they match people with dogs and they tell their stories, and it's really quite emotional and generally quite uplifting. And as I was watching it, it made me really think about what we can learn from our dogs or from the dogs and our pets generally around us, because they bring so much to us. They bring, this joy, this energy. And when we look at them, we can quite often think, oh, it's just the dog. They're just behaving, like a dog does. But I think there are lessons to be had. So when I go to my friend's house, I used to borrow a dog, and he brought me, Jane will probably remember, immense joy. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago now. So I now get my fix from when I go around to my friends. And the first thing that always it just brings me joy immediately is the greeting that I get. So Indy, she's quite a big dog. She's a Shepherdoodle, so a mix of a German Shepherd and a Poodle. And she's exuberant. She's so delighted to see me, even when she only saw me 5 minutes ago. So we've literally had it where we've been out to dinner and she's been with us, driven back separately. And I arrive at the house just after them. And she's like, oh my God, it's so wonderful to see you. It's just fantastic. And she's jumping all over the place. And I think what I take from this, apart from the fact that it gives me huge joy, it's that she shares that emotion that she has. She doesn't think, oh, I only saw her 5 minutes ago. I better just be a bit toned down. She's just herself, and she's just out there giving, that love and telling you how she feels. And I think we can learn from that in terms of telling people and sharing our feelings with the people around us and the animals around us. Now, the other thing that Indy does is she is incredibly persistent. And I think, again, we can learn from this. So Indy came into a house that had 2 cats. The cats decided that they could not cope with the addition of this dog, and they moved themselves upstairs. So they basically moved upstairs. Now, Indy believed that these cats will come to love her. Now, unfortunately, one of the cats has now passed on, but the remaining cat's quite a grumpy cat. She's not cuddly. And she'd avoid Indy to the best of her ability. She'd, sort of snarl at her or whatever she would do to push her back. And, Indy would be there, but I love you. And she'd be looking at it going, I just want to play with you. And the cat's like, just get lost, go away. So 4 years on, and I get a picture sent to me of Indy lying on the bed with the cat. Indy's looking at the cat. She's just like completely besotted and just thrilled that she's finally been allowed to sit and lay here with the cat. The cat's looking kind of like, what the hell? How did I let this happen? But Indy's persistence and her complete belief that at some point the cat, Marnie, was going to love her. She's never given up. She's just kept going and kept persevering and kept having that faith that at some point it'll come together. And again, I think we can learn a lot about that. The other thing that I've noticed that dogs do, or some of them, is they know their audience. So I'm going to go to Woody now when he was here. And Woody seemed to have this sense of who liked dogs, who didn't like dogs, who didn't think they liked dogs, but Woody was pretty sure he could convince them that they loved him. And that intuition that they act on without any thought is something that I think we've switched off from, that we don't necessarily go with, what we might call our gut instincts. And dogs do this naturally. So I can remember when my neighbors were rebuilding the fence between us. And so they'd taken the old fence down completely. One of them absolutely really does not like dogs. Really don't want dogs near me. The other one's not really a dog person, but has reluctantly admitted that Woody was a bit cute. Woody would go running out into the garden, completely ignore the guy who didn't want to know, go up to Lizzie, who was, reluctantly fond, and say hello. And so he knew just from his experience, don't go and bother this person. They don't want to know. This person can cope with me for a little bit. I'll go up, and if I give her some cute puppy eyes, she'll love me for a little bit longer. So again, just as another example, I think we can learn from that. We can learn about being loving and showing our love. We can learn about being forgiving, because dogs forgive you when you make a mistake. If you forget to feed them, they don't forgive you if you don't give them their ball back, or at least not in my experience. They seize the moment. They're persistent, and they bring complete joy. And I really think we could learn so much from just watching and observing and taking on some of their approaches to life.
Thank you, everybody. Well done. So, 6 speakers, up to 6 minutes each. Random Dialogues 29. Thank you for tuning in and watching. We've got a couple of questions from people dialing in on YouTube. So let's go to comments. Oh gosh, stop. Edmund has been dialing. He says, Tricia, do you believe that there is life after death?
I absolutely do. I didn't always. I think I was raised typical in Ireland, Catholic, and then really lapsed from my faith in my 20s. And when I started working in palliative care, I was very much on the hedge about that. But I've had so many amazing experiences that can't be discounted. And I really do believe that we go on to, that there's a veil and we go through it. Unfortunately, we can't peek through it. But I do think that we go on. I feel that we have other lives, that we have it's a different reality. And I think maybe that the other realities vibrate at a higher vibration to us, and we just can't see or sense. But sometimes we get a sense of something. And I think in that moment, something in us is tuning into something. But yeah, I really, really do. And I feel it's like the soul, when it leaves the body, it's like taking off a tight shoe. That's what I feel. It's like, I'm out of this at last, and can expand out into the cosmos. I hope.
Thank you. I've got another question from Alex. He's over on LinkedIn dialing in. Alex says, that's really interesting. Do you think pets are good barometers of our own emotions, perhaps reflect our internal emotional regulation, Debra?
I think well, with cats, I don't think they do at all. Cats are their own owners and are the ones that tell you how you should be feeling and what you need to do. And you should just get on with it. You know, my friend's cat swiped at me because I had my hand on the same tabletop as her. Dogs, I think they're more that they recognize how you're feeling, and they can be very sensitive to when you need comfort. So again, with Indy, I can remember one of the children in the house, so adult child, coming in and feeling really, she was having a bad day. And Indy went straight to her, and it wasn't the excited, I'm so thrilled to see you. It was, I'm just here. Almost, I know that you need me to be there. And I've seen that with other animals as well, that they just seem to have this intuition about how we're feeling. And we see that in, dogs that are there for blind dogs. I don't mean blind dogs, but you know what I mean, that are supporting people in different ways. So I think they're more that they recognize how we're feeling and what we need and try and give us that where they can. Does that answer the question, Alex? Sorry, I've just realized Alex can't answer me.
Thanks to Alex for the question. Actually, as I've said before, if people are watching this on record or now, we can engage with your questions after this as well by finding them on. I can share them with the speakers wherever you've decided to comment. So we've got 6 minutes left. I had a question for Ed about the eco schools and children's schools. I felt when I was doing it that I was already spinning so many plates, and the schools that I felt was most successful when I went along to sort of eco events were those schools who had maybe the parents involved, and the parents were leading in a way and sort of like, making it happen, sort of So yeah, do you find that that's a kind of quite a common barrier, the time as well to invest and do something you feel passionate about?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, your role within a school is to be a teacher and to teach those 30 odd children within your classroom, and to have that extra workload on top of it, having to you're planning lessons, but then you're also then given the eco lead, or you want to be the eco lead and you want to have time, but then you don't get given the time to do it, and then it becomes like a vocational. You end up using your after schools, your weekends, your lunch times, your break times, your holiday time to get it all in, and you don't get anything extra, but it's all based on goodwill, sadly, and there needs to be more of a recognition for people that want to be an eco lead, more of a reward, because that's what's going to help us inspire more children, inspire more teachers to take action, and without that, then sadly I don't think we have much hope. It needs to be valued more within teaching.
Definitely. And you're a great ambassador. I mean, you're on LinkedIn a lot. I mean, you're a teacher who's really sort of getting out there and sharing what you're doing. And I know you're in Bali now, sharing the love of what you're doing as well. So thank you for joining us so early in the morning. Come over there.
Is this coming out the wrong way around?
No, it's coming up okay.
Okay, this is a very good book. I cheated. I cheat with a lot of books that I read, and that is I read the first chapter and the last chapter, because the last chapter has all of the key ideas in it summarized. But it's actually a very, very good book on how to actually start a movement and actually sort of get big change to happen. I go into my library thinking, oh, that's interesting, going for one particular thing, and they have these sort of weird books on the stands, and I end up actually going and buying them, having a look at them, borrowing them. And continuously, I tend to actually go and buy them. So I think my biggest bookshop is actually my public library, because I don't want to give them back. So this one has to go back. I think it's due tomorrow, but I've already bought it. But it's a very important book, very good book.
Thank you for sharing.
As you said about change and things, so as you said, get everybody involved, parents or whatever. It's not just the immediate audience.
I feel quite sorry for the children in schools, really, because I mean that there's already a lot of anxiety in our children, and we dump the problems of the world on them in assemblies and in classes. It's like it's not a problem. It's not. We didn't create all of this. They've got to be the ones sort of educating and nudging the adults, I think, and inspiring that change.
Yeah, I find if you create a particular culture and you lead by example. So when I was teaching in mainstream classrooms, I was always talking to them about which bin things went in, and that was just something good, right? And I still do it now, with my staff and the students alike. We talk about, okay, can this be recycled? Which bin should it go in? And thinking about, do we need to print this? How do we deal with our, how do we handle our equipment? Are we being careful? Are we being wasteful? So yeah, I think it's just for me is as much a mindset as anything else. Of course, this is a different, this is a private business, so I can do all these things. Extra, as it were. But in schools, as a school teacher, I did that too. So I was talking to the kids about being careful with the resources that we have, being careful with the water, with the soap, with the hand towels, the paper towels, and you don't need 5, 2 is enough. I mean, just mentioning it in passing almost, to build that awareness really in the children.
I was just wondering if there's something about as well that doing something is better than doing nothing. So if you can't, make a wholesale change so everything about your life is, fully sustainable, that just doing that one thing and not because as you were saying, Jane, about, children and the anxiety that they already feel in school, not making it, a big deal. If you put it into the wrong bin, it's not the end of the world. It's just, almost like a learning point of, did you mean to put it in there? Why is it? So trying to, I guess, encourage it maybe softly. And I know that there's an urgency around what we need to do because of where we are in the world. But from the children's perspective, trying to not make it yet another thing that they have to think about and do right, that they can just take those steps and they can learn from their successes, and making it as easy as possible for them to make those choices. So, if the right pen to use is not a pen, but a whiteboard pencil, making sure that they've got them and that they know that they're there, and maybe that they know where to buy them in case their family wants to buy some for use at home. And just, I guess, trying to make it as easy as possible is just what came to mind as you were talking about it.
Thank you, Debra. I'm going to just very quickly wrap up now because it's just gone over the hour. So thank you for joining us for Random Dialogues 29. Hashtag Random Dialogues 29. Join us for the next one on Random Dialogues 30 in March 19th. What's the topic is your subject you feel passionate about and might like to share? Come and speak about it. As you've seen, you can speak for 6 minutes or do a Q&A. We'd love to for you to join us. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's been here this evening, being brave, coming along. And I'll take us offline now, but you can stay in chat and we'll say goodbye in the broadcast room in private too.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for those people who've engaged. We will get back to you as well if you've got any more questions.